Every day, starting 10 days out from the NFL draft, we've been taking one position group from the Panthers and breaking it down. How has it changed since last season? What do they still need to do? And with the draft next Thursday, although the Panthers don't have a pick till Friday, we then bring up what could they do in the draft to help this position, if they will do anything in the draft to help that position. Today, we decided to break down. I was going to say tackle, but I want to say position that has the ball. So I'm going to be like, hey, today we're going to tackle the wide receivers. Today we're going to break down the wide receivers, which is one of the more buzzy, one of the more talked about positions this offseason. Probably because they needed to do a lot.
Yep.
It needed a full-scale knockdown, start from the ground up rebuild. And they've done a good job thus far. They're in the middle of the rebuild. Right, so it may not look good, right? It's have you known anyone that's like built a house, meaning that where sometimes even it's they just get to like pick the fixtures and stuff, and then but they get to watch their house get built. They visit it, and it's like, hey, like 6 weeks from now we're gonna move into our house, and they have a picture, and it's like, they got a lot to do in 6 weeks.
You sure about that?
You're standing in front of something that looks like just wood, boards.
You got a tent in the front yard? Like, what are you doing here, buddy?
That's where I feel like that's where the Panthers wide receiver room is now. It's like they've done a lot of work. Still looks wildly incomplete, but you can get excited, right? There's a date on when things are going to get finished, and you hope they make it. Your builder is asking you what kind of knobs you want on your cabinets. And you're going like, maybe we should worry about walls and doors first. But if you think we need to decide, I guess we like these. Last year, it was Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall Jr., and Laviska Shenault. That was the group to get excited about preseason. Chark, Marshall, Shenault, gone. Thielen and Mingo, back, but in very different roles. Hopefully.
Throwing Amir Smith-Marset into that, too.
Who was a later addition and then ended up – and I almost count him as like a returner, that if you can get something out of him in the wide receiver room, great. There was also practice squad Mike that had one catch for 45 yards last year.
Great catch.
Which was exciting for the 4 seconds that it took place. Mm-hmm. And then for the next couple games, it was like, will they get practice squad Mike back in there? They did not. Or he was in there, but he's dinging the ball. So anyway, Thielen and Mingo are coming back, but the reason why I'm saying it's a full-scale knockdown rebuild is Thielen's not going to be the number one. And Mingo isn't going to be depended upon to be one of the playmakers, not in the same way he was last year, where it was like, if Mingo's not making plays downfield, this offense, it doesn't really have a field stretcher because DJ Chark got a case of the dropsies. So here's what it's going to look like. Deontay Johnson, who they brought in on a fantastic trade, which the more and more I think about it, the more and more I like it. And I liked it a lot when it took place. They were going to cut Dante Jackson, somehow worked him into a trade package to go get Deontay Johnson with a pick swap of late-round picks. Great, absolutely great trade.
Johnson caught a lot of passes for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of them.
He's the number one. Which allows Adam Thielen to drop down to at least the number two, which I like him a lot more as a number two than a number one. I would add they're going to add 2 more in the coming draft.
I can see that.
They're going to add a second rounder and a day 3 pick. Either the 33rd overall pick, so the Panthers have the 33rd and 39th. Those are both top 10 picks in the second round. One, their own pick, and another they got as part of the Brian Burns deal. I would be very surprised if that draft capital doesn't end up with at least one wide receiver. Very surprised. Now, that's not to say like, oh, it's definitely 33 or 39, because they might trade back or they but if those 2 picks are made and it doesn't somehow lead to the Panthers bringing a wide receiver in, I would be wildly surprised. Wildly surprised for this reason. It's a very deep wide receiver draft. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Everyone's talked about it because, half of NFL coverage has turned into fantasy football coverage. There's a lot of wide receivers that are like, we'll look at the very top of the wide receivers just to explain the point I'm trying to make here. There's Marvin Harrison Jr., who's seen as kind of a generational guy. There's Malik Neighbors, who's seen as, everybody will say it, if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't here, he'd be the number one of the last however many drafts. Then there's Rome Odunze out of Washington, who is getting that same treatment. In some drafts, he could be the number one wide receiver. In this one, he's third. There's going to be someone that the Panthers can pick early in the second round where they can say, if this player was in the draft 3 drafts ago, he would have been a first-round pick, or 4 drafts ago, or 5 drafts ago. There is going to be a player that they, in other years, would have a first-round grade on that they can get in the second round at wide receiver. That's what you need to do when you don't have a first-round pick. That allows, like, the whole roles to change. Thielen can be the wise advice giver. He can be the old grizzled vet. He can be the gather around, children, let me tell you about a time pre-cell phones. Like, Adam Thielen can be that guy. Mingo can develop without having so much pressure on him to make all of the big plays. You can lean on Deontay Johnson to be the ham and egger, right? To be we need to get a lot of first downs. You need to beat your guy. When Bryce needs a play, he's going to look to you. Then you can have whoever you draft in the second round as the playmaker. That takes pressure off of Mingo. That allows Adam Thielen to age more gracefully, and that allows, the last 6 weeks of your build to go, all right, yeah, we could live here.
Plus, as well, Thielen being there, you don't put as much pressure on that second-round pick, assuming to be the number 2 guy right away. He can work his way into it.
Or even if he doesn't become the number 2 this year.
Yeah.
I like Thielen as a number 2.
That's fine.
If you want to use the second-round pick as your number 3 wide receiver and playmaker, right? And the guy to take a shot on, or shot 2, I should say, on second and short. Because here's what's going to happen, and it's literally the definition of what Dave Canales has talked about when it comes to his offense. It's been run, stay dedicated to the run, stay dedicated to the run, and that only works if you keep teams honest with the occasional play action shot downfield, the occasional deep ball, the occasional keep you honest play. Which is why you can be out in Seattle and you can run with all the different wide receivers that they bring in, and then occasionally DK Metcalf, occasionally Tyler Lockett, right? The Dave Canales was in Seattle with Russell Wilson throwing those moon shots, right? The punts that are spirals and fall down into the hands of the guys downfield. He was in Tampa last year, where Rachaad White got the ball 1 billion times, but Mike Evans had a bunch of touchdowns because they would play action deep ball, jump ball, throw it downfield, and Chris Godwin was kind of the ham and egger I was talking about. Thielen can be effective. He was effective last year. Deontay Johnson will be effective. They're building, they're rebuilding, they're finding a way to do it. I would be very surprised if they don't still have a long way to go.
They definitely still, because again, you've only added one. You've only added one piece. It's like, okay, you mentioned Johnson, the trade, still have Mingo and Thielen coming back. Smith-Marsette's gadget guy, returner, might use like a special play here and there type thing. Mm-hmm. You still need to add probably a couple.
Like I said, two in the draft and maybe a tight end.
I'm okay with it.
Like, you need an infusion of that talent. You spent your free agency money on the offensive line. Great. Give Bryce Young 8 seconds to throw and nobody open. Like, you now have to go make sure the guys can get open. Deontay Johnson can. Adam Thielen can, I think, still do it. And obviously you want him to age gracefully. You need to add more to it, though.